already beginning the transition. We're well underway.
U.S. President-elect Joe Biden on Tuesday said that nothing would stop the transfer of power as he prepares to enter the White House in January, even as President Donald Trump says without evidence that the election was marred by fraud.
We're going to be moving along in a consistent manner, putting together our administration, the White House, and reviewing who we're going to pick for the cabinet positions, and nothing's going to stop that.
This, as some senior Republicans have also sought to sow doubt about the outcome of the election. Among them, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who backed Trump's right to launch a legal challenge to Biden's victory in several battleground states.
I think that the whole Republican Party has been put in a position, with a few notable exceptions, of being mildly intimidated by the sitting president.
And Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Tuesday predicted a, quote, second Trump administration, a comment at odds with congratulatory phone calls between Biden and the leaders of Britain, Germany, Ireland, and France.
I wanted really to congratulate you and congratulate Kamala Harris for this election.
Biden was asked by a reporter whether he would take legal action to gain access to classified information and other documents that are normally transferred during this time, but that the Trump administration is withholding.
No, I don't see a need for legal action, quite frankly. I think the legal action is, you're seeing it play out, the actions he's taking, and so far there is no evidence of any of the assertions made by the president or Secretary of State Pompeo. Secretary of State Pompeo.
Biden called Trump's failure to concede the election an embarrassment that would not help Trump's legacy. Biden won the election by securing more than the required 270 votes in the Electoral College and also won the popular vote by more than 4 million votes. A Reuters Ipsos poll out Tuesday found that nearly 80% of Americans, including more than half of Republicans, recognize Biden as the winner of the presidential election.
We have to come together.
We must count every legal vote.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Tuesday joined other top-ranking Republicans refusing to acknowledge the results of the election days after the race was called for Democrat Joe Biden, and providing oxygen to President Donald Trump's desperate effort to somehow stay in office for a second term.
Is the State Department currently preparing to engage with the Biden transition team? And if not, at what point does a delay hamper a smooth transition or pose a risk to national security?
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. Right? We're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly. The world should have every confidence that the transition necessary to make sure that the State Department is functional today, successful today, and successful with the president who's in office on January 20th, a mid-afternoon, will also be successful.
The country's top diplomat appeared to reject Biden's victory even as world leaders from Britain, Germany, and France all called President-elect Biden to congratulate him on his win.
Should foreign leaders not be calling
we're
President-elect Biden?
It was next.
Yeah.
But Trump is not giving up, vowing to push ahead with long-shot legal challenges to his election loss as he makes sweeping claims of widespread election fraud for which he has offered no evidence.
100% within his rights.
On Monday, the leading Republican in Congress, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, also failed to acknowledge Biden's victory.
No reason for alarm.
On Tuesday, McConnell reiterated his support for Trump to pursue lawsuits.
Anyone who's running for office can exhaust concerns about counting in any court of appropriate jurisdiction.
Meanwhile, U.S. Attorney General William Barr, who met with McConnell privately on Monday, has told federal prosecutors to, quote, pursue substantial allegations of voting irregularities and the counting of ballots. In Pennsylvania, Republican state lawmakers called for an audit of results in the state that on Saturday pushed Biden above the 270 votes in the Electoral College that he needed to win the presidency.
There were more than 59,000 COVID-19 patients in hospitals across the U.S. on Monday, the country's highest number ever since the pandemic began. That's according to a Reuters tally. The number of Americans currently hospitalized with COVID-19 has surged around 73% over the past 30 days, surpassing the previous record set on July 22nd. Hospitalizations are a key metric of how the pandemic is progressing because, unlike case counts, they are not influenced by the number of tests performed. Texas reported the highest number of hospitalized COVID-19 patients on Monday, as officials in the county of El Paso called in temporary refrigerated morgue trailers to contend with the surge. But the Midwest remains the hardest-hit region based on most cases per capita. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum announced Monday evening that state hospitals were at 100% capacity. Drug maker Pfizer provided some hope with an announcement of successful late-stage tests of its vaccine. Experts are encouraged by the preliminary results but are awaiting full trial data. Dr. Peter Hotez, the dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College and a professor of pediatrics and molecular virology and microbiology, is cautiously optimistic.
It's always problematic to try to understand what's actually happening just by looking at a company press release. The information it contains looks promising. I don't think we know anything, though, about how it protects against severe disease, severe illness, and that would be good to know. And hopefully the FDA will feel comfortable beginning to release the vaccine through the public. We clearly need vaccines because we have not had a national containment strategy for COVID-19 all year.
Despite hopes for a new vaccine, authorities fear that infections and fatalities will continue to rise. This as new infections exceeded 100,000 for the 6th consecutive day. Deaths over the week to November 10th increased 15%, or more than 6,600 people over the previous week. That was the highest one-week total since mid-August. Worryingly for officials, health experts say the death toll tends to spike 4 to 6 weeks after a surge in infections.
China says it's seen a spike in prosecutions for wildlife-related crimes in the wake of COVID-19, up 66% from 2019. The country's lucrative but poorly regulated wildlife trade came under fire in January after the first outbreak of COVID-19 was linked to a wet market in the city of Wuhan. Scientists believe the pandemic originated in horseshoe bats and infected humans through an intermediary species, possibly pangolins. In February, Chinese legislators passed a resolution banning the sale and consumption of wild animals like bats, pangolins, exotic birds, and Arctic foxes. China's Prosecutor General's office says after that, more than 15,000 people have seen legal action taken against them in the first 9 months of 2020. Some exceptions to the ban were open for uses in traditional medicine. Since then, 2 major wildlife breeding provinces offered to exchange animals for cash, so hunters and breeders could switch professions. Chinese prosecutors warned that much of the illegal wildlife trade had shifted online, with the exotic pet market a new threat to public health and the safety of animals.
Saeb Erekat, one of the most experienced and high-profile advocates for the Palestinian cause, died on Tuesday after contracting COVID-19. 65-year-old Erekat was a top negotiator and Secretary General for the Palestine Liberation Organization. He was also a spokesman for Palestinian leaders such as Yasser Arafat and current President Mahmoud Abbas. Abbas declared 3 days of mourning, calling his death a, quote, big loss for Palestine and our people. He died following multiple organ failure after spending 3 weeks at Jerusalem's Hadassah Medical Center, according to a spokeswoman for the Israeli hospital. He was particularly vulnerable to the respiratory disease, having undergone a lung transplant in the United States 3 years earlier. Erekat was well known in diplomatic circles across the world and regularly featured in international media. In recent years, he was the principal face of a war of words with President Donald Trump's administration over a Middle East plan that envisioned leaving Israel in control of Jewish settlements and large parts of the occupied West Bank. After peace talks collapsed in 2014, he remained a firm backer of the negotiated creation of a future Palestinian state coexisting alongside Israel, even if, in his own words, it took 50 years. His funeral is expected to be held on Wednesday in the West Bank city of Jericho, where he spent much of his early years.
Microsoft has launched its next-generation Xbox games consoles. The Series X will sell for about $500, while the less powerful Series S will go for around $300. Microsoft says the two versions give consumers greater choice, though some critics have called the cheaper model underpowered. Regardless, the tech giant says it has seen record pre-orders for the new machines. Initial supplies sold out fast, with analysts citing supply chain issues at Chinese factories related to this year's health crisis. Microsoft has said it would have more stock available on launch day, and timing of the debut looks fortuitous, with gaming enjoying a global boom amid demand from consumers stuck at home. Some, though, wonder if Microsoft is short on killer games to go with the new consoles. The latest version of its flagship Halo series has been pushed back to next year, also due to health-related delays. And the company won't have the next-generation feel to itself for long. On Thursday, Sony will launch its new model, the PlayStation 5. The Japanese firm is widely seen as leading the console race, thanks to its bigger fan base and a wider range of exclusive gaming titles available at launch.